Hey everyone, Ian Henderson here, working on project number 4 and our presentation here. So we're gonna look at 5 different books and really 3 different kind of areas that I kind of tried to focus on. So here we go. So looking at our first book, it's called The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This book follows a 16-year-old young girl by the name of Star Carter. She lives in a low-income, predominantly black community, and the other side to it is she actually attends a more of a privileged white private school. And she actually witnesses her childhood friend be shot by the police during this book, and that kind of sets the tone for this book and how she has to navigate not only that but also living in a predominantly black community with going to a private school, and just those two different worlds and how to really kind of raise her voice against justice and through things like racism and the police brutality and her own identity as well. This book was banned by many different school boards, just due to the communities that these books were in, and the reason was the book had bad language. Obviously the police brutality and the racial tensions going on throughout the book really raised kind of some red flags, and so those things really made an effort in the reason for the ban. My opinion on it, I think there's pros and cons. I really think having some of these books with some restrictions and on how to get them, I think they can be very good learning opportunities, and just bring a certain awareness to the situation, and on the other side of that, the cons could be, well, maybe the cycle, maybe it keeps happening, or we're just not able to have access to learn, from these things if the books aren't there. So moving on to our next book, pretty familiar maybe, for a lot of people, is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Kind of a brief synopsis of this book would have to be, it's coming from a period in time in history where the South was very racially segregated throughout the 1930s. It follows the character Scout Finch, the brother Jim, and the father Atticus. And Atticus was a lawyer at the time, and we kind of see this tension and prejudice within their own community there, when the father Atticus actually defends a guy named Tom Robinson, who was actually wrongfully kind of accused of raping a white woman, and really just kind of brings out the theme of it being kind of a racial injustice, and kind of you know Scout um, really Scout really was able to get the most out of this by being able to learn about human nature and what importance that brings, right? For standing up for what is right, not just when the opposite is kind of all for the other way, right? So I think that was very important, that Scout was able to learn from. And moving on to who banned the book, it's been challenged and banned in many different districts throughout the U.S. It's just with its language and the themes that come along with the book. I think it, really raised those red flags. And so those people, decided on this verdict. The book has a lot of different racial slurs, including the N word, and themes of, just that racial injustice are, included in it as well. It just gives a uncomfortable feeling and, potential harm in reality. So my opinion would have to be, I think it's up in the air too with this one. Because to be honest with you, I had to read the book in high school. It was one of the books that we were just required to read. There was a different process with it, which made it a lot better. Like we had to get permission and things like that. But I think the pros really just, include, again, being able to learn from something like this, and, confront, America's racial history in some positive light. Now, cons would be removing it, could reduce, the opportunities to learn from it again. And I think those are just the biggest things when you're looking at this book and, the previous one in general, is just understanding that it can have a positive effect if we do it right. Moving on to our third book, Beyond Magenta, Transgender Teens Speak Out by Susan Cucklin. A brief synopsis of this one would have to be that, in this book we see 6 different teenagers that all are, sharing their life journeys with, gender identity. And, Cucklin does a really good job with these in-depth interviews with them that allows them to really portray their story, in their own words, while, facing challenges of, things with friends, things with family, and just the society in general. And it was good to see how they, are able to really overcome that. Is also included in those interviews, to try to find that self-acceptance for themselves. Now, some of the people that have banned the book really include 2 main states, Texas and Ohio, and really came from just the community and the parents not really agreeing with, the book itself. And those, that's kind of how and who banned it. So more on how, and the reason for the ban is, how in depth that this book gets with, things about gender, things about sexuality, and, identity itself. They really thought that the book was too mature for, school libraries, and, it just the influence it would have on the students that, have different gender views. Which kind of leads me to my opinion on it would be, since the book provides and really praises empathy and really an understanding about gender identity, it shouldn't be banned, just because it's being a positive light, for the transgender youth. Just to feel that acceptance. Keeping it away from them would only just, keep, diminishing them and just that, that community. So definitely don't agree with the ban. Moving on to our fourth book, called This Book is Gay by Juno Dawson. It's a really good book to kind of wrap up the theme of these 2 last books. Really about understanding the LGBTQ community and the identities, the relationships, the issues, really that these teens and young adults are facing. Some things that are included in there are, about, how these young adults and teens are coming out, and how, they are trying to have the community help them deal with, the homophobia and just that understanding of, sexual identity and just the health of it as well. And I really think one of the cool things about this book is that Juno Dawson herself is a transgender and really is able to, implement her own story and her own experiences to really, help these people, feel supported and have that, self acceptance through it all. So moving on to who banned it, right? Many districts in the U.S., just like a lot of the other books, have banned it. Now, a majority that have banned this book have been in conservative states. Just with, the complaints about language and, just the content that's within it. Some people just didn't like, so they raised their voice, and that's how it got banned. And some of those reasons actually, with the book, it has information about the LGBTQ, issues, the relationships, and the sexual health. And it has led to many people arguing, that it's too explicit for, those that are reading it, these young adults, these teenagers. It's just not, mature enough for them to be reading. Now, moving on to what I think about it, again, I think in the world that we live in, where you're free to expression and you're free just in general, I don't agree with it because, even though it contains this explicit language, the kids in schools nowadays have language that is ridiculous anyway. And that starts at home with these parents. And, a lot of them probably don't even know the language that they use. So, and that's not even the biggest reason. I think the biggest reason is that this book actually, has good guidance on how they can really affirm their own identities. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from this. So moving on to our last book, it's called The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. A brief synopsis of this one would have to be it's a book that kind of follows a boy by the name of Charlie, who is an incoming freshman, introverted freshman, and through relationships and friendships with older students, his two friends Sam and Patrick, he really starts to see some highs and lows, of these relationships, of different love, and even in identity itself. The book does a really good job of theming out, things like loneliness, the abuse, and just that self-discovery, self-identity, and things like that. Moving on to who banned this book. This book has been removed from many schools and states of Virginia and right here in North Carolina. It just plays along with a lot of other books and, how the community, is able to raise its voice, and parents of the kids going to these schools have raised their voice and just, kind of moving on to the reason about it was, they thought that, referencing, the sexual abuse, the drug use, and the mental health struggles, kind of as harmful things for, these kids in these schools to be reading. And so that was kind of the reason for, the banning and the parents themselves banning it. Now, my opinion on banning it would have to, again, be not to ban it. I think all of the issues within the book are things that, we actually see in today's school and the generation of today. The struggles really could, foster a better understanding of these things. Again, being able to learn from these things, um, you know, being able to learn from the things in the book, but also other people's mistakes in general. Kind of allows us to learn and stay away from these cycles and the addictions and things like that that keep happening over and over again. So looking at kind of the overall thoughts on this unit on books and the 5 books that we just even looked over. I believe that the process, to access these books needs to be different. I believe most of the books being banned don't have to be. And that's just because, the simplicity of the process in which, they become available to the school and the youth within the school. And I think with, a plan involving, an individual's parent or the guardians, we can provide, the access to these books for kids that want to learn and read, on a certain genre or a certain topic. I just truly think that banning them, outright for the whole community or school doesn't even, make a lot of sense because it really could be used as a learning opportunity for a lot of kids because not all kids are the same. And, these kids over the course of their school, careers are trying to find their identities and who they're going to become and what their futures may look like. So I really think this was a really good project. I actually learned a really good amount from it and was able to take away a lot of positive things.